Stop thinking you're cursed, you're just being tested by him. There are moments in life when everything seems to be falling apart, that no matter how hard you try, the obstacles keep coming. You lose people you love, you struggle financially, you feel like no one understands you, like you're trapped in an endless cycle of pain and misfortune. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that you're cursed. That something, maybe fate, maybe karma, maybe even a divine force is punishing you. You look around and see people who seem to have it easy, people who make one careless decision after another but still prosper, while you suffer despite doing everything right. And so, the thought creeps in, why me? Why am I the one who has to endure this? But what if I told you that you are not cursed? What if I told you that what you're experiencing is not punishment, but preparation? A test, not a sentence. What if everything you are going through right now is happening for you, not to you? What if, instead of being abandoned, you are actually being chosen, selected for something much greater than you can currently comprehend?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, the most powerful souls, the most enlightened beings, the ones who are meant to do extraordinary things in this world, these are the ones who suffer the most. Not because they are cursed, but because they are being refined. If gold is to be pure, it must go through fire. If a diamond is to shine, it must endure extreme pressure. And if a soul is to rise to its highest potential, it must be tested in ways that would break an ordinary person. Think about it. Every great figure in history, every enlightened teacher, every person who has ever changed the world has gone through immense suffering. They have faced loss, betrayal, rejection, doubt. And yet, they emerge stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever. Because they understood something that most people never grasp. The struggle is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of transformation. But here's the real challenge. Will you recognize this truth before it's too late? Or will you allow yourself to believe the illusion that you are cursed, that you are doomed, that life is against you? Because the moment you start believing you are cursed, you give away your power. You shift from being the creator of your destiny to being a victim of your circumstances. And nothing is more dangerous to your soul than victimhood. So, ask yourself this: what if every hardship you faced was actually a lesson? What if every betrayal was meant to teach you discernment? What if every loss was meant to clear space for something greater? What if every delay was actually divine timing, protecting you from something you weren't ready for yet? Could you still call it a curse then? Or would you start to see it as a blessing in disguise? The problem is that most people give up before they get their answers. They break before the breakthrough. They let the pain consume them instead of allowing it to shape them. They don't realize that the moment when everything feels the hardest is the exact moment when they are closest to their transformation. And that's exactly what he is testing. Who is he? Call it God, the universe, divine energy, whatever name you choose, the truth remains the same. The force that created you, that watches over you, that has a plan for you, is testing you. Not to destroy you, but to see if you are ready for the next level, ready for the blessings that you have been asking for, ready to become the person you are meant to be. Because here's another truth: the blessings you seek require a version of you that does not yet exist. And the only way to become that version is through trials, through hardship, through pain. It's easy to have faith when life is good. It's easy to believe in yourself when everything is going your way. But what happens when you are thrown into the storm? Do you still believe then? Do you still trust? Do you still fight? Or do you surrender to the illusion of defeat? Most people don't realize that their greatest blessings are hidden inside their greatest struggles. That the very thing they are cursing could be the thing that is leading them to their purpose. That their suffering is not meaningless, but a part of a larger divine plan. But because they do not understand this, they fail the test. They give in to bitterness instead of growth. They drown in self-pity instead of rising in self-mastery. And as a result, they remain stuck in cycles of pain, never realizing that their suffering continues only because they refuse to learn the lesson. So, I ask you again, are you really cursed? Or are you just being tested? And if you are being tested, how will you respond? Will you break, or will you rise? Will you surrender to the illusion of misfortune, or will you recognize that you are in the process of becoming something far greater than you ever imagined? Because the truth is, no one who is truly cursed asks themselves these questions. No one who is truly cursed has the awareness to even recognize the possibility of a test. The very fact that you are listening to this right now, that you are searching for answers, that you are questioning your suffering, this alone is proof that you are not cursed. It is proof that something within you is awakening, that you are being prepared for something greater, that He is watching, waiting, seeing if you will pass the test. But now, the real question is, how do you pass it? How do you shift from feeling cursed to recognizing the divine test for what it is? How do you ensure that you don't waste this pain, but instead use it to elevate yourself to a higher level? Because the truth is, while suffering itself is inevitable, growth is a choice, and not everyone chooses to grow. So, what will you choose? The hidden lessons in your suffering, what He wants you to see. Pain has a language of its own. It speaks in silence, in sleepless nights, in moments of deep isolation when no one seems to understand what you're going through. But most people never stop to listen. They resist their suffering, fight against it, try to numb it, or escape it. They see pain as an enemy, as a punishment, as something unfair that should not be happening to them. But what if pain was never meant to destroy you? What if it was meant to awaken you? You see, suffering is not random. It is not meaningless. It is a teacher. And the greatest mistake people make is that they go through pain without learning the lesson. They experience heartbreak, betrayal, loss, failure, and instead of asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" they ask, "Why is this happening to me?" And that single shift in perspective, that single refusal to see the lesson, is what keeps them trapped in cycles of suffering. Because here's the truth, He is always speaking to you, always guiding you, always trying to show you something, but most people are too distracted by their pain to hear it. But they are so consumed by the unfairness of their situation that they fail to see the wisdom hidden within it. But if you take a step back, if you silence the noise of self-pity and frustration, you will start to see patterns. You will start to notice that every painful experience in your life has been trying to teach you something specific. Have you ever wondered why certain things keep happening to you? Why you keep attracting the same type of people? Why the same struggles seem to follow you no matter where you go? it is not because you are cursed. It is because you have not yet learned the lesson. The test will keep repeating itself until you pass it. The suffering will continue until you evolve beyond it. So what is he trying to show you? Maybe your suffering is teaching you patience because you have been too focused on forcing things to happen in your own time instead of trusting divine timing. Maybe it is teaching you strength because you have been underestimating your own power for too long. Maybe it is teaching you detachment because you have been placing your happiness in things that were never meant to be permanent. Maybe it is teaching you self-worth because you have been surrounded by people who do not value you, and he is waiting for you to finally walk away. But the hardest truth to accept is that sometimes suffering is the only way we will ever listen. Because when life is comfortable, we rarely seek growth. When things are going well, we rarely stop to reflect. It is only when we are broken, when we are desperate for answers, when we are forced to sit in the darkness with no distractions, that is when we finally start to see the light. That is when we finally hear him speaking. But do you know what most people do instead? They resist. They fight against their suffering instead of flowing with it. They blame, complain, escape. They use distractions, pleasure, addiction, relationships, material things to avoid facing what is really happening. And instead of healing, they stay stuck. Instead of growing, they remain the same. And that is why their suffering never truly ends. Because here's the greatest secret: the moment you stop resisting your suffering, the moment you start asking, what am I meant to learn from this? That is the moment the pain begins to transform. That is the moment you step into your power. Because suffering only controls you when you refuse to learn from it. The second you recognize it as a teacher, you take back control. So ask yourself, what lesson have you been avoiding? What truth have you been refusing to see? What cycle keeps repeating in your life, and why? Because until you answer these questions, until you accept the lesson, you will continue to feel trapped. Not because you are cursed, but because you are ignoring the very thing that is meant to set you free. And here's the final truth: he does not test you to break you. He tests you to reveal you, to show you who you truly are, to show you what you are capable of, to strip away every illusion, every false belief, every limitation you have placed on yourself. Because the version of you that starts the test is not the version of you that finishes it. You are meant to emerge wiser, stronger, completely transformed. But will you? Or will you allow your suffering to turn you bitter instead of better? Will you continue to see yourself as cursed, or will you recognize that you are being refined into something greater? Because the truth is, pain will either make you or break you. The choice is entirely yours. But now, the real question is, once you understand the lesson, how do you move forward? How do you ensure that you never have to repeat the same suffering again? How do you take what you've learned and use it to elevate your life to an entirely new level? How to break free, turning your pain into power. Understanding that your suffering is a test is one thing. Using it to transform your life is another. Because wisdom without action is wasted. Too many people realize their struggles are shaping them, yet they do nothing with that knowledge. They see the lesson, but they refuse to apply it. And so, they remain stuck, trapped in the same pain, repeating the same cycles, wondering why their life isn't changing. But here's the truth: pain is power, but only if you know how to use it. Every wound you have, every heartbreak, every failure, every moment of suffering contains energy. And energy, by its very nature, must be directed somewhere. If you do not use it to grow, it will use you. It will turn into resentment, into fear, into limiting beliefs that keep you small. But if you learn to harness it, to channel it, to master it, that is when everything changes. That is when you stop being a victim of your pain and start becoming the creator of your own destiny. So how do you do that? How do you take the weight of your suffering and turn it into strength? The first step is the hardest: acceptance. Most people don't realize that resisting pain only makes it stronger. The more you fight it, the more it consumes you. The more you try to escape it, the more it follows you. But the moment you stop running, the moment you turn around and face it, that is when you reclaim your power. Because pain only has control over you when you fear it. The second you embrace it, it loses its grip. Ask yourself, what if I stopped seeing my pain as an enemy and started seeing it as a tool? What if, instead of avoiding it, I leaned into it? What if, instead of trying to numb it, I let it teach me, mold me, strengthen me? What if every hardship I faced was actually fuel for my transformation? Could I still call it a curse then, or would I start to see it as a gift? The second step is redefinition. You must shift the meaning you give to your suffering. Because the way you define your pain determines what it does to you. If you see it as a punishment, it will break you. If you see it as proof that you are cursed, it will drain you. But if you redefine it as preparation, as training, as the fire that is refining you into something indestructible, then it becomes your greatest advantage. Think about the most powerful people in history. The ones who changed the world, who overcame the impossible, who left behind legacies that still inspire us today. Every single one of them suffered. Every single one of them endured trials that would have destroyed an ordinary person. But instead of letting their pain define them, they defined their pain. They turned their wounds into wisdom, their struggles into strength. And because of that, they became unstoppable. The third step is action. Pain demands movement. It wants to be expressed, to be transformed, to be turned into something greater. And if you do not give it a productive outlet, it will create destruction instead. So ask yourself, how can I use this pain? Can I turn it into art? Into a mission? Into a purpose that helps others? Can I take what I've learned and use it to guide someone who is struggling the way I once did? Because the moment you start using your pain instead of letting it use you, you become untouchable. And here's the final truth. The people who suffer the most are often the ones who are meant to lead, to heal, to inspire. Not because they are special, but because they have walked through the fire and survived. Because they understand pain in a way that others do not. Because they have been tested and proven strong enough to carry the wisdom that only suffering can teach. So the question is, will you let your pain make you bitter, or will you let it make you powerful? Will you allow it to break you, or will you use it to break every limitation that has ever held you back? Because the truth is, suffering is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of your transformation. But now comes the final question. Once you have broken free, once you have turned your pain into power, how do you ensure that you never fall back into the same darkness again? Becoming untouchable, how to stay strong no matter what comes next. Breaking free from suffering is one thing. Staying free is another. Too many people rise only to fall back into the same darkness that once consumed them. They heal only to reopen their wounds. They learn only to forget when life tests them again. And this is why so many people remain trapped in cycles of struggle. They believe that overcoming pain once is enough. But life does not work that way. Growth is not a single event, it is a lifelong process. Strength is not something you achieve once, it is something you must maintain every single day. So the real question is, how do you stay strong? How do you ensure that no matter what happens next, you will never fall back into the mindset of victimhood, of weakness, of fear? How do you become truly untouchable, not in the sense that you will never face hardship again, but in the sense that no hardship will ever have the power to break you again? The first answer is awareness. You must never forget the lessons that your pain has taught you. Too many people escape suffering only to get comfortable again, only to lower their guard, only to slowly slip back into old habits, old patterns, old ways of thinking. And then, when the next storm comes, they are unprepared. They are caught off guard. They are weak again. But if you stay aware, if you remind yourself daily of what you have learned, of what you have overcome, of who you have become, then no challenge will ever shake you. The second answer is detachment. One of the greatest sources of suffering is attachment to people, to outcomes, to comfort, to control. The reason most people break under pressure is because they are too attached to how they think life should be. They expect things to go a certain way, and when reality does not match their expectations, they suffer. But when you learn to let go, to detach from the illusion of control, to trust the flow of life, then to accept that everything happens exactly as it is meant to, then nothing can truly disturb your peace. You stop fearing loss because you understand that nothing was ever truly yours to begin with. You stop fearing failure because you see that every setback is simply redirection. You stop fearing change because you realize that growth is impossible without it. The third answer is discipline. Strength is not a feeling, it is a habit. You do not stay strong by waiting to feel strong. You stay strong by doing the things that keep you strong, even when you don't feel like it. Meditate, reflect, challenge yourself. Push your limits. Do not wait until life tests you again to start building resilience. Build it now, so that when the next storm comes, you are already prepared. But here's the most important answer of all: purpose. The people who remain the strongest are the ones who have something greater than themselves to fight for. If you make life only about yourself, your pain will always seem unbearable. But if you take what you have learned, what you have survived, and use it to help others, to guide them, to uplift them, and to inspire them, then your suffering is no longer just suffering. It is fuel. It is meaning. It is something that has made you into a force that cannot be stopped. And this is where you truly become untouchable. Not because life will never test you again, it will. Not because you will never feel pain again, you will. But because you will no longer be controlled by it. You will no longer fear it. You will no longer allow it to define you. You will use it. You will rise above it. You will walk through the fire, knowing that nothing can burn you anymore. So now, the final question: are you ready to stop seeing yourself as cursed? Are you ready to stop running from your pain and start using it? Are you ready to become the version of yourself that no longer breaks, no longer doubts, no longer fears? Because the truth is, He has been waiting for you to realize this all along. The test was never about punishing you. It was about proving you. And now, the only thing left to decide is this: will you pass?